What's up, everybody? Today is March 29th of 2021. And if you ever needed evidence that the media loves numbers, how about this one? Today, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that we're told Officer Derek Chauvin knelt on George Floyd, leading to his alleged death, was suddenly changed to 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Now, of course, this is not an organic story. This is something crafted by the media. And we'll talk about this entire George Floyd incident. So many questions about this and just exactly how manufactured it was. And in this video, I'm going to show you the evidence that it was manufactured through the numerological language of Gematria, which is adored by Freemasonry, a network of many police officers. And of course, this story is about the police murdering a black man. So let's talk about why this change occurred, why these numbers are important, and a little bit more about some of the George Floyd riddles that I actually missed last year when I started decoding this story. Now, the number 846 was already significant. A lot of people have mentioned how the World Trade Center was struck at 8:46 a.m., and that's true. That happened in the time of Virgo in September, and Virgo has this gematria of 846. 846 was also the time of the sunset in Minneapolis on that night. So now they've changed it to this really interesting 929. And 929 is a prime number that connects to Freemasonry. But notice how they added a crafty 43 seconds to this time, from 846 to 929, adding 43 seconds. In reverse reduction, the name George Floyd equals 43. The officer who knelt on him, Derek Chauvin, who spells his name the correct way, I guess that's how I spell it, his name sums to 43 in ordinal. And notice how this story was published on the 88th day of the year. 88 is a very significant number to do with the kneeling riddle. This goes all the way back to Colin Kaepernick, the kneeler of the NFL. And his full name in Gematria, Colin Kaepernick equals 88 in Gematria. That kneel number. Not only is today the 88th day of the year, but it also has primary numerology of 73. And this story is talking about how long Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd. Notice how the words knelt and Floyd equals 73. These numbers significant to the sacrifice code. See how sacrifice and ritual sacrifice equals 73? The date March 29th ties into the ritual human sacrifice code as well. Ritual human sacrifice equals 329. And we know this is relevant to the story because look at the Jewish value of 895. This reminds us of the number 33. 33 was the age of Jesus when Judas betrayed him. Judas equals 895. And look at the name Derek Chauvin. 895 in English Gematria. We'll explain the value on all four of these base ciphers in a little bit. But really the big part about this whole George Floyd incident was that it was connected to the assassination of Martin Luther King. Again, another numerical riddle repeated in the news for the same agenda, to spark racial tensions. In the language of Gematria, George Perry Floyd sums to 1929. 1929 is the year that Martin Luther King Jr. was born in. 929, and now they're telling us that Floyd was knelt on for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. A little bit more about this 93 riddle with Martin Luther King. The name Martin Luther King Jr. in Gematria sums to 93. And 93 is a really significant number to Minneapolis, Minnesota, which sums to 93 in reduction. Notice how all the sports teams from Minneapolis have 93 in their gematria. The police equals 93. So does the word propaganda. Minneapolis sits right there directly on the 93rd meridian. The governor of Minnesota, check out his birth numerology, 93. We're told that Floyd graduated in 93, and his counterfeit $20 bill led to his death. It was filmed by Darnella Frazier, which equals 93. And again, this all ties into the crucifixion of Jesus, which we'll expand on in a little bit. The occultic riddle that they love to play out over and over again. It's said that Jesus was crucified on the 93rd day of the year between 9 and 3 o'clock. God's Son 93, Nazareth 93, Crucifix 93. The sun an average of 93 million miles from Earth. Now, in the year 93, the Martin Luther King Jr. story was back in the news because this man, Lloyd Jowers, check out the name Lloyd. Of course, the name Floyd is derived from Lloyd, which is a word for gray, which connects us to the moon and this lunar eclipse riddle that we're going to talk about. So in the year 93, Lloyd Jowers popped up on the news and said, no, I killed MLK. And this was a big media scrum. Well, they found that this guy didn't, or that he was lying or whatever. It doesn't matter. He was so old. But this is why the story came up in the year 93, because it's connected to the crucifixion code. Martin Luther King Jr. 93. Remember Malcolm X? Malcolm X 93 in the alphabetic order. Notice how the name Martin Luther King sums to 1109. 1109. And on the 11th of September, that was the 846 plane crash. Notice how the name George Floyd, also with this 119 in ordinal. And then what really confirmed that this was all a staged ritual is when we learned about the age of Derek Chauvin, the officer. And notice how Derek Chauvin was born on March 19th, 1976, meaning that on the date that he allegedly killed George Floyd, he was 44 years and 68 days old. Well, Martin Luther King was assassinated on 4/4/68. Furthermore, consider how the 44th prime number is 193. And Chauvin's birthday is written 19/3, 193. When you add their full names, Derek Michael Chauvin, George Perry Floyd, you get 193. So this being the 44th prime number is very significant because from Floyd's death to the date of today's news story, it's been exactly 44 weeks. This is the number of kill in ordinal. Floyd's birthday is connected to 44. He was born on October 14th with numerology of 44. Also check out Derek Chauvin summing to 68. He was 68 days after his birthday on this news story. But finally, perhaps the most obvious part of this 929 riddle, this new time that we're given for this, the number 929 is a prime number. That would be the 158th prime number. Now, isn't it interesting that 158 days separate the birthdays of George Floyd and Derek Chauvin? George Floyd had this curious tattoo on his chest, which strongly resembles this Masonic symbol, the Scottish Rite, which controls the police networks in this country. Check out how Freemasonry equals 158. And in my last videos on this story, which I linked down below in the description, you'll see I identified 158 as a really big number in this story. The governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, his name equals 158. The mayor of Minneapolis, his name is Jacob Frey, 158. Crucifixion code equals 158. And Minnesota was the 32nd state added to the Union. 32 equals 158. Remember, the number 32 was attributed in this story. George Floyd was pulled from a vehicle that had the numbers 320 on the back, And then he was killed behind squad number 320. This all connected to the crucifixion of Christ riddle. Christ equals 32. And this is all going to make a whole lot more sense even as we get to the eclipse part of this. By the way, this number 320, look at this. It sums to 93 and 237, just like Minneapolis, Minnesota, the police department that was involved in this big, massive play, essentially, is what we're looking at. So as I mentioned, the time was extended by 43 seconds today. George Floyd has the 43. Derek equals 43. The word killing equals 43 even. But check out the name Jesus Christ. And as I explained in my first video, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ was believed to have occurred on April 3rd, the 93rd day of the year. And think about how April 3rd is written, 4/3. Jesus Christ, 43. Notice how the state of Minnesota has this 515 value in English Extended. In the alphabetic order, in the same cipher, Jesus equals 515. In ordinal, Jesus equals 74. And let's look at when the state of Minnesota was admitted to the Union. May 11th, 1858. Of course, that connects us to the 158, the year 1858. But look at the numerology of that date. 74, like Jesus. A little small there. Just crank that up for you. And now today, in regards to this 515 sync between Minnesota and Jesus, today is 5 months and 15 days after George Floyd's birthday. Did you know there's actually a DJ named Minnesota? And I don't think he has his own Wikipedia page, but at a music festival I was at, they started him on the stage at 5:15 p.m. I thought that was a really weird time, but of course I know about Gematria, so it wasn't weird to me. So we talked about the number 93 and how that was significant to this man, Lloyd Jowers. And before I get further, let me just show you the etymology of the name Lloyd, right? Lloyd as a boy's name, it's of Welsh origin, and the meaning of Lloyd is gray-haired or sacred. So we're talking about gray, right? And what color is the moon? The moon is gray. Notice how in Gematria, the word moon equals 57 and 51. So does the word gray. They also share the 21 in reduction. And this is all connected to the moon. The name Jowers in Gematria, by the way, this guy's name, see how it equals 1725? Well, when George Floyd died, he was exactly 17,025 days old. This is a rearrangement of the digits in Jesus Christ in the same cipher, 1275. So recently I've been teaching about this really significant Bible verse. Revelation 6:12. And right now, a lot of people ask me, are we in end times? Well, I think there might be a group of people who wants us to be in end times, but humanity is rising right now. This is a very strong time. The energy is as powerful as it's ever been. And this coronavirus pandemic really is kind of a cover-up for these solar energies beaming to the earth, elevating our consciousnesses. So in the book of Revelation, we get this verse that mentions both a solar and a lunar eclipse. And check out the numerology or gematria of this verse. 526 and 2210. And notice how it says the moon became as blood. Well, that would be a lunar eclipse, a blood moon. And now look at how this witness in the news story today says that Derek Chauvin used a blood choke on George Floyd. A blood choke? This is a reference to May's blood moon, the lunar eclipse. The 2021 total lunar eclipse falls on the date May 26th. 5/26/221 is the date. 5/26/221, like this verse of Revelation that mentions an eclipse. Furthermore, check out the 192 in ordinal, eclipse 192 in Jewish. So we have this ultra significant, I'm calling this the Revelation lunar eclipse, and I don't want that to scare anybody, but hey, it seems to be coded in the book of Revelation, so I'm just throwing it out there. And they've been numbering our lunations since 1923 to tell us about this riddle, and I'll mention that in a little bit here. Now, from the date of this May 26th total lunar eclipse to the date of the death of George Floyd, notice how it's 1 year and 1 day. 1-1. So here we have the number 11. Remember, George Floyd equals 119, like the 11th of September. And on 9/11, we had the two American Airlines planes, AA or 11, Flight 11, American Airlines, crashing into the World Trade Center, which is shaped like the number 11. The name Jesus equals 11. The World Trade Center is on the 74th meridian, just about exactly. Also, Revelation equals 1010, a lot like the number 11. Now check out the Saros cycle that this eclipse belongs to. This May 26th lunar eclipse belongs to Saros series 121. Check out the Gematria of Revelation, 121. And now look at the value of Derek Chauvin, 121. Revelation is an apocalyptic tale, apocalyptic 121, about the second coming, 121. So what about today's news story? If we measure from today to the date of that eclipse, well, look at that, 58 days. And in standard reduction gematria, Derek Chauvin equals 58. Also notice how his name equals 203 and 68. Total lunar eclipse equals 203 and 68. Which moon phase is this all about? So check out how this is the last full moon before moon phase 1218. Again, back in 1923, it's called the Brown lunation number. On January 17th of that year, we began counting lunar phases. In Sumerian gematria, which is the alphabetic order times 6, total lunar eclipse equals 1218. Total solar eclipse equals 202 and 1212. And I spent a lot of time talking about the fact that in 2020, the total solar eclipse occurred to begin lunation 1212. So guys, this period here, this few months that we're in, this is all prophesied. I'm not even kidding. I never thought I would say something like that, but events around this time were literally coded into the Bible. I would have never thought my channel would come to... I don't know what I'm predicting even. But I think, maybe the people who wrote this book or study it believe that it's the second coming or their Messiah is on its way. And all these riddles are playing a tribute to that. By the way, speaking of lunar eclipses, George Perry Floyd equals 69, just like lunar and eclipse. And if you measure from his death to this big Revelation eclipse, check out how it was a span of 367 days. This is the 73rd prime number. And this is a number we kind of led the video off with, right? Floyd in 73, today has 73 numerology, born in the year 73, sacrifice 73. And you know what's really weird about this? Look at how Derek Chauvin... Okay, guys, this is the really strange part about the synchronicity. Of course, my last video, where I talk about Dr. Oz and Draz, what I'm positing there is that synchronicity is stronger than we can ever comprehend, right? Well, the fact that this guy's name is Derek Michael Chauvin really trips me out because my full name is Derek Michael J. Tikori. And look at this. My name is 203 and 1218, just like his name in reverse. Derek Chauvin, 203 and 1218, right? Now, I learned something about this year's revelation eclipse that absolutely floored me. And it's actually a strange thing to share, but check it out, man. It's so weird. You know, you've been learning about this eclipse code from me for years. I've been teaching this since 2017. And I can't even believe how well I line up with this. So, Gematria, of course, comes from Hebrew. I talk a lot about the Hebrew Gematria, especially when it comes to eclipses. Because the word for eclipse in Gematria, in the Hebrew language, I don't have a shortcut for this. The word for eclipse equals 156. And this is super important because an eclipse always occurs 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases after the last one. The 156th prime number is 911, connecting us to this whole crucifixion code again. And even in English, this is attributed. Eclipse equals 33. 33 equals 156. So does eclipse the sun, or plane of the sun, which the moon must cross. 666, the tilt of Earth's polar axis to the plane of the sun. So in Hebrew Gematria, you have to type in full lunar eclipse. Full lunar eclipse. And this gives you the more common Hebrew phrase, right? And you'll see this is the phrase that's used for total lunar eclipse if you translate this. It translates actually more accurately to full lunar eclipse. But what they use is total lunar eclipse. So for years, I've been teaching that this phrase sums to 445. And one of the more obvious riddles regarding this number is that Donald Trump, who he was the 44th man to be president, but the 45th president, and he was born on the date of a total lunar eclipse. So I always found this number to be interesting. I've been teaching about it. Well, I was born one day after a full moon, June 4th, 1985, 6-4. The word birthday equals 604. And on the date of this revelation eclipse, look how old I'll be, right? This is a really pi-like number, 13,141. But if you take 1,300 and... All right, let's do this. So we're going to look at the length of a lunar phase. And it's 29.530589. So if you take... I guess I got to share my full screen here. Bear with me for a second while I... All right, here we go. So if you take 13,141, the number of days I'll be old, and divide it by lunar phases, I'll be 445 lunar phases exactly on the date of this revelation eclipse. It doesn't even make sense. And then my name, Derek Michael J. Takori, equals 203, like total lunar eclipse. How is that possible? That I've been teaching this code for years, and then I come to find this? I mean, it really blows my mind. There's more too. I actually wrote a blog post about that. But this video is not about me. It's about breaking down this story, explaining to you guys how the news loves this organic matrix and attributes it with their rituals, all meant to mess with our minds. One last thing that I left out that we might as well touch on is that the number 929, this is a very biblical number connected to the crucifixion as well. There are 929 chapters in the Old Testament, which is, of course, followed by the New Testament, which immediately begins with the crucifixion of Jesus, or the story of it. And in Jewish Gematria, United States of America gives us this 929 there as well. All right, guys. That'll do it for this video. Thanks to everybody for popping in. I had a nice 93 viewers when I closed this stream out. How perfect is that? All right, everyone. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.